Seats available, of course, and I want to welcome you to historic City Hall. For those of you who are visiting, what you're seeing here in this chamber is the original place where Pan American had their first ever seaplane base. The first airport that Pan American had ever was this historic City Hall. So the seaplanes used to leave from here, where the marina is, and here is where the passengers got their tickets, where we have the offices. Upstairs was the dining room and the terrace to say goodbye or hello to the people that were coming. Those planes used to leave here for Nassau and Havana. And these were the first international flights ever in the United States. So by the 1930, they say, the city of Miami had some spare land and gave Pan Am some land that they call Wilcox Field, which is now Miami International Airport. That's why this airport is right in the middle of the city of Miami, because it was, and then they did a swap. So this became City Hall back then, with a caveat that it would always have to be a City Hall. And it has been. However, the city has grown, and now you only have the chamber and elected officials here, and the administration building is in downtown Miami. This was declared historic by the National Historic Trust, and the paintings that you see in the ceiling are the original one from the 1920s. It was renovated by the state of Florida Historic Preservation Department. So it's kind of a historic place. We have a marker right on Bayshore because the first group of people used to live here in what they call the village of Coconut Grove and the West Grove. And that's why Miami is so diverse. The historians say that when Julia Tuttle and Mary Brickell wanted to create a city, they had to come here to the West Grove, and they found a group of Bahamian fishermen that signed as incorporators of the city. And history says that it may be more than 60% of the incorporators that were not born in the United States, in the city of Miami. The census of 2010 says that 60% of the people were not born in the United States, the people that live in the city of Miami. So with that, so I don't have a program, but I'm supposed I need a program. So with that, I want to welcome you to this historic City Hall, and on this important day for Miami and for the children of Miami. You know, for more than a year now, Ana Cristina, my wife, has been working with HISPA in New Jersey to bring him back. And today it's a big day because we're announcing the details. So it is important because the two schools that will be part of this project are in the city of Miami. And by the way, one of the school is the oldest school in South Florida, which is Miami High School. If you go to Lummus Park by the river, you will see a kind of a bungalow there. That was the first Miami High. And since then, Miami High has grown to become one of the biggest and more important high schools in South Florida. Also, Kinloch, it's in the Flagami area in the city of Miami. So we have a special program for you, and so we wanted you to understand the magnitude of this project and how important is the cooperation between the private sector, the non-for-profits, and governments and school boards. So it is my pleasure to introduce the school board member for this area and Miami High area and Kinloch area, a person that I've known for many years, Raquel Regalado.
Thank you very much. First, I'll be brief, and thank you for coming out on a Friday night to talk about education and mentoring. You know, I've been on the school board for 6 years, and one of the reasons that I have enjoyed it so much is because we get to reach out to our community and really bridge those gaps. I represent an amazing district and really am honored to represent the city of Miami, you know, and in the years that I've been at the school board, one of the things that we are often asked, right, is, you know, what is success and what makes a child successful? And my answer, more often than not, is perspective. I was blessed with amazing parents who exposed me to all sorts of people. And the story that I tell people, and I think it's apropos for today's event, is when I was in kindergarten, actually it was first grade, they asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up. And the majority of little girls in the room said that they wanted to be princesses. My father was a White House correspondent, and I said that I wanted to be the first woman president of the United States. I'd been to the White House, and I thought it was fabulous. I was all about moving in. But if I would not have been exposed to that, that was not even in the realm for most children in my first grade class. So I was blessed with an amazing childhood that exposed me to amazing people. And I remember the first time I met a female elected official. It was Janet Reno. I asked her if I had to be as tall as her to get elected, because I was convinced that her height had propelled her to her position. And my mother was 4'11", and I was tiny. And thankfully, she told me that I could wear heels, and that kind of solved my problem. But as I got older, particularly in college, and I worked with children who came from challenging backgrounds, and I asked them the same question that my first grade teacher asked me, which was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And their answers were so limited. I realized that you really are a victim of your surroundings in many areas. So as a school board member, I've spent so much time speaking to young children, talking to them about what they can achieve. And I'll leave you with this. The reason that I'm so grateful for my father and for Ana Cristina for spending so much time talking about these topics is that my concern is that the challenge of this generation is a lack of self-esteem. Unfortunately, they are being exposed to many things that my generation was not exposed to. And when the most popular person in the life of a tween became popular because she had a sex tape, you wonder as a parent what example we're setting as a community. But unfortunately, if you go to PACE, if you go to these schools where we have young girls that have already had problems with not only our system, but with the juvenile system, the first thing that you hear them talk about is how many likes they got on Instagram and how many people are following them on Snapchat and what they have to do in order to get that type of popularity. So hopefully we can all change the conversation and expose young women and young men to different types of role models that focus on work ethic, role models that focus on education, role models that really challenge them to be the best version of themselves, not the easiest attainable famous that unfortunately has become the normal. So thank you for your investment in our children. Thank you for your investment in our community. As a school board member, I am very grateful, but as a parent, I'm even more grateful.
So we know what HISPA is, and we know because we have lived it. We went for several days to their headquarters, and we saw the work that they did, and that's why Ana Cristina got so engaged in this project, because she saw it as a solution of many problems. Mentoring is one of the most important things, as Raquel has said. But we want to know about the HISPA story and the vision that they call 2020. And for that, we would like to ask Rene Herrera from the HISPA Board of Directors, and he's a global senior IT audit manager at Office Depot, and it's going to tell us about the HISPA story. Rene.
All right. Can I have the slides, please? Awesome. Thank you. So, welcome everybody. First of all, thank you so much for taking time from your busy lives, busy schedules to be here tonight. Tonight is a very special evening for HISPA and for Miami and for the children of Miami. Today is the very first HISPA kickoff of the role model program in Miami. This is something that probably a few years ago we could never imagine. And I'm so glad that thanks to the Mayor, Ana Cristina, and some great sponsors as Visa, ESPN, this has been we have been able to make this possible. So thank you so much for that. I'm part of the HISPA Board of Directors, and it's a real honor for me as a leader of this great organization to come here and talk to you about the wonderful mission of HISPA. So, as part of celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, you know, we celebrate the accomplishment of Hispanics in the country, in America. And as we know, our Hispanic population has been growing significantly in the last decades. And I think that that gives us great responsibility, but also it presents to us a great opportunity, an opportunity for us to make a difference in the country and help the country to achieve progress. And I think that's something that I'm sure that we all agree that we want to make a great contribution to our society and our country. However, there is a huge challenge ahead of us. And that challenge is that the young population of Hispanic students, they're lagging behind in education. If we look at some statistics, it will show that although Hispanics are the 17% of the US population, around 40% of the young students that drop out high school are Hispanics. And that's a big challenge. Now, that's not just a challenge and an issue for Hispanics in the US. That's an issue for the whole country, because we need a motor of engine. We need the youth population to prepare and help the country to progress. So that's something that we need to tackle. I guess the good news is that we have some great people and great organizations like HISPA that are helping us to tackle that issue. So the role model program of HISPA, they focus on bringing together role models that they can share their stories with young students to inspire them to transform their mindset to achieve higher education. That's the whole principle of HISPA. The HISPA program focuses on young students. We visit schools. Most of those are middle school, because there has been research that has shown that at that age, the students are open to, be influenced, and that's the mission of the HISPA role models. We want to put a seed in the heart and in their minds of those students for progress. So let me tell you a little bit about the HISPA program. So one of the core elements of the HISPA programs, as I said, is the role model program. And I'll tell you a little bit about my involvement with HISPA. So 8 years ago, since I was young, since I was in high school and college, I always, enjoyed to get back to the community. So I have worked in the past, when I was in college, I worked with the Homeless Children Foundation. And 8 years ago, I was looking for opportunity to work with the students and get back to the community. So I had the privilege to meet Yvonne, and that was at the time she was founding HISPA, and she told me about the role model, and she said, well, you know what, it works, it's very easy. We just go to a school, you share your own story, you tell the kids about, your life, the challenges you face, the barriers that you encounter, all the obstacles that you overcome, to be able to make it to college, to be able to, find a job, to get a job, and be a successful professional. And that sounds very easy, right? But at the same time, back then, 10 years ago, I can tell that I'm sure that some of you are great public speakers. 10 years ago, I never imagined myself in front of an audience like you today. And for me also was kind of like a, nerve-wracking to think that I was going to go into school and talk to the students. And I said, you know what, I accept the challenge. I want to make a difference. So I went to our first school. And it was a nerve-wracking experience, but it was probably one of the most wonderful experiences that I had. And since that moment, I fell in love with the HISPA's mission. And probably one of the most surprising things to me is when I got the feedback from the students, and when I got some thank you cards from the students. And when I start reading from those students that said, we appreciate, Mr. Herrera, that you took a time of your life to come to the school, talk to us, and tell us that I can go to college and I can make it. And for me, that made a huge impression. And since then, I've been, loyal to HISPA. I was in New Jersey, and I worked for 8 years as a role model, going to schools in New Jersey. And last year, last January last year, I changed jobs. So I left New Jersey. I moved down to Boca Raton, Florida, and I knew something was missing for me. And I was missing really to the work with the kids. So last year we started a pilot role model program in Palm Beach. We found a school. I found a school. I told Yvonne, we need to expand in Florida, and we started a pilot program. But then the dream to come to Miami, we made it happen, and thank you to some of you. Thank you to Major Regalado and his wife, as well as the sponsor. So thank you so much for making this happen. So the other two aspects of the HISPA program. So one thing is, in these visits, we bring we go to the school 6 times. And there is different role models, different backgrounds, different professions, and they took to the kids, and they bring the message of hope. And they said, hey, you know what? I'm Latino, I had to work hard. In some cases, we have some amazing stories, like a role model that we brought to Palm Beach is from Cuba. And the stories that I heard in New Jersey from other role models is a little bit different. Or we all Hispanics, but different realities. But this message from this role model, this girl actually from Office Depot, one of my coworkers, she had an amazing story that connect with some of the kids, because she came from Cuba, and the stories that she was telling the kids, it was unbelievable. And she connect with those students. And some of them, they came to the US a few months ago. They didn't speak any English. And then she told them that she went through that she had to work really hard to go to college. She had to work really hard to find a job, and she made it, and she's a successful professional. So that's the idea of those visits. Now, once we take the message of those students that yes, they can make it, then also we have the youth conference. So the idea of the youth conference is we want to expose these students to the college environment. In most cases, for those students, nobody in their family has gone to college. So they don't have a role model. They don't have anybody that says, yes, you should go to college. I did it, you should go to college. That's not the case. So with the youth conference, we bring the students to a college for 1 day, and we have the role models to give them some workshops, and we talk about different areas in those workshops. And the idea is that we want those kids to see themselves and start having big dreams about, I'm gonna go to college. So that's the idea of the youth conference. In New Jersey, we have the youth conference at Princeton University. In New York, we do it at Columbia University. In Texas also, we've done it at, I don't recall the, St. Mary's University. And for sure, we're gonna do it in Miami. We have plenty of great schools here. We have FIU, we have Miami University, Florida Atlantic University, so that's part of the plan. And then third is the corporate visits. And that's when some of the sponsors from the corporations also, they can help us to make a difference. So first, we take the message, you can do it. Second, we take them to the college. Hey, start thinking about this. You can also go to college. And then we take them to a corporation where they can start seeing themselves maybe in that corporate environment. So in those corporate visits, we also bring the students for half a day. We have some workshops. We invite some executives from the company to talk to them and tell them about their own experiences. And we want those kids to start seeing themselves in those environments. So I can tell you from my personal experience, when I was at Verizon, before coming to Florida, I used to work for Verizon. And I happened to be the president of the national president of the Hispanic ERGs, the group of Hispanic employees of Verizon. And I was a big fan of this because I saw the faces, the questions, the curiosity of those young students when they came to a corporate environment. That was amazing. So those are the key elements of the HISPA program. This is just to briefly show what we have accomplished. So we started 8 years ago, in 2008, with a few role models. And we have grown significantly to a network of 2,000 role models. We started with a few schools in New Jersey, and now we partner with the schools in New Jersey, in New York, Texas, and now in South Florida. So these pictures, this is just an example of the role models visits, but I guess the questions here for all of you is, can you see yourself talking to the kids in one of the schools? Because that's what we need. We need role models. We need that you go to the school and share your experience with those students. So here are some of the pictures. I don't know all the locations, but we go to schools and I have another slide where it talks about the schools that we have in New Jersey and New York and Texas and Florida. And this is what HISPA is all about, the kids, the students. We know in each of those events, if you see the faces of those students, and it's just amazing. And again, when they give you feedback and you realize that because you went to these schools or you brought them to a university, you were able to change their perception about going to college, that's probably the most rewarding aspect of the program. I also can tell you that I'm so proud to be associated with an organization that was recognized by the White House for the initiative of educational excellence. And that's a recognition that HISPA earned last year. So what is our vision? What is HISPA's mission and vision for 2020? What we want is by 2020 have 20,000 role models talking to those kids. That's our target. And something interesting in these charts, if you see Florida, the green bar, I can tell you that we see a huge opportunity in Florida. And we believe and we know that we're going to expand in Florida. Because here in Florida, I mean, there is a lot of students that need us, but I'm sure that at the same time, there is a lot of talent, a lot of role models here in Miami. So definitely that's where we see a huge growth and opportunity for the organization to reach more students. So as I said before, we really want to thank our partners. These are the annual partners of HISPA. So we have ETS, Verizon, ESPN, AT&T, Comcast, and Southwest. Thanks to those partners, we are able to deployed our program in different states. And especially today, we want to thank Visa, our biggest sponsor. And thank you so much, Eduardo, because thanks to your championship, this has been possible. So I know Visa is everywhere you want to be. So thank you, because thanks to you now, HISPA is in every school we want to be. So thank you very much. We also want to recognize ESPN for your support. They're big partners with us in New York. And of course, we want to thank Mayor Regalado. Thank you so much for your leadership and for opening, the doors of your house to, and Ana Cristina as well. That's right. So thank you so much. And also First Bank. UPS is a big sponsor as well. Just to let you know, 2 days ago we have the same event in New Jersey, and we hosted the New Jersey kickoff at the UPS offices in New Jersey. So thank you very much, UPS. And definitely we want to thank our team here in Florida, the key role models that has helping us to move forward with the program. So I want to, if you can please stand up. Ana Cristina, por favor, if you can please stand up. Inés Vargas from Microsoft, please. Ruben Garcia, Office Depot. Adriana Pinet from UPS. And Nikki Pauli from ESPN. Thank you so much, because thanks to you, you have made this possible. So I guess with that, I just want to challenge you to sign up for the program. I can tell you that Rod Colon, he's great. He is our director for role model development. I wish we had Rod Colon 8 years ago, before my first visit, but now we make it easier, and he's the one he's going to talk more about the role model program, and he is the one who helped us to prepare the role models and work with those role models. So I challenge you to sign up, and I hope to see you in the list of role models for next year. So thank you very much.
Hi, how's everybody doing? My name is Sebastian. I work for ESPN. I'm going to be a moderator of sorts today. And I just wanted to share a little bit of my story with you before we get started. I've been working in ESPN since 2003. I'm an Argentinian who covers the NFL and the NBA for a living. And as strange as that might sound, a couple decades ago, it might have been insane. I had a pretty rough childhood. To be honest with you, my mom was manic depressive. My father-in-law was an alcoholic. And I found in sports kind of a place where I could transform that negative energy into a positive one. And I knew from a very young age that this is what I wanted to do for a living. However, wanting to do something and be able to do it are two very different things. And I think that's what HISPA is all about, because I need it, as I'm sure all of you here needed at one point in your life, somebody to extend the hand, somebody to give you the opportunity, to give you the confidence to be able to find your place and try to achieve your dreams. And that's what I think HISPA is telling us, to pay it forward in a way, to honor our stories and make America's youth future brighter than ever. So I know the founder of HISPA, Yvonne Diaz-Clays, couldn't be here. She was here last week in Miami, having lunch with some ESPNers. She was visiting schools. If we want to have an impact nationally, we got to work all around, and she's right now in New York. But I know she's super excited of the fact that this program, the Role Model Program, is here in Miami. It's a reality. And that's why, I wouldn't be here if I didn't honestly believe in this program. That's why I committed myself to be one of the role models from today onwards, and trying to help kids in any way I can, whether it's with sharing my story, boosting confidence, or just providing some context to them in the area of work that they want to achieve in the future. So with that, I wanted to introduce to you our next speaker, somebody who has an inspirational story himself, somebody that's been working in New Jersey with the Latino youth via Skype, and that has also been hand in hand talking with kids who wanted to follow up on criminal justice. I wanted to present to you the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of Florida, Wilfredo Ferrer.
Thank you very much, Sebastian, for the introduction, and it's wonderful to be here, and it's amazing on a Friday afternoon. We were dealing with some rain maybe and the wind, but you all are here because we all share the same vision and the same mission and the same passion. And I will tell you that I love what HISPA stands for. I stand here before you and before this community where I grew up as the U.S. Attorney, which is a position that, it requires being nominated by the President and being confirmed by the U.S. Senate, something that I never in a million years would have ever dreamed of happening to someone like me. And the fact that, and I'm sure that every single person here would think about, the fact that you're sitting here today, the fact that you've had your success, it's because someone along the road took a chance on you, believed in you, said something inspirational to you, which is why I love HISPA, because I love the word inspiration, because I'm sure that we've all been inspired by so many people, by so many different role models. It can be your family, your parents. Some people maybe are not that lucky to have grown up in a home where that was the case. So your role model could be a teacher. It could be a friend. It can be a colleague. It can be a community member. It could be anyone that you meet that just thinks about you and tells you you can do it and you can do anything you want. And for me, when I think about Hispanic Heritage Month, which is also what's so amazing about doing this and bringing HISPA to Miami on Hispanic Heritage Month, is because when you think of the Hispanic story, it's a story that usually is combined with some struggles, some different challenges, some achievements, and some ability to dream. Because of the Hispanic story, when you look at the historical aspect of the story, it's fascinating. And it's a story that we all share in many different ways, not just the Hispanic story, but anybody's story, because we're a land of immigrants here in South Florida. And so for me, my parents who arrived here in 1960, fleeing, and trying to get away from communism, the last thing that they probably thought was that one of their sons was going to be nominated by the President of the United States and work in a capacity that I am so blessed to work in. There's no way that probably even crossed their minds. But the story that I just want to tell you, which is really a story of my role models, which were many different people along the road, but it all started at home. And just to give you an idea, right before I get to that, about the job that I have, because even when I was in law school, I had no idea what a U.S. attorney was. And a U.S. attorney is someone, I am tasked to be the federal law enforcement, the head federal law enforcement officer for the district. The South Florida district is the third largest in the country. It goes from Key West to Fort Pierce. And my job is to work with prosecutors, with FBI, with the U.S. Marshal, with DEA, with ATF, with all of those federal investigators to make our society more just and to make it safer for our children. It's to protect us, basically. And yesterday, I just did a presentation at one of our middle schools about internet safety, about all the things that are happening out there that, children could be, preyed upon by predators on the internet. So it's all those issues. And I get tasked to working with the most incredible people to fight against human trafficking, narco trafficking, public corruption, Medicare fraud, and Miami has it all. I love it here, but my goodness, I don't know if it's the humidity, but when it comes to all different types of challenges, we have it here. And people sometimes ask me, but Willie, do you ever get down because there's so much of what you do and you see out there, especially human trafficking, which is horrific? And I always say, I don't, because I work with the best people. I work with public servants that give their lives day and night and the weekends to fight this. And the people that commit the crimes are the minority. It's the small number of people that create so much havoc. But I get to see the good in people. I get to see agents and lawyers and professional staff members. So when I tell you that I wake up every morning and I can't wait to get to work, which is something that my mom, my wife thinks I'm weird. Because, Willie, it's a job, right? I'm like, no. It's a passion. I love it. Like, I can't wait to do it. And I'm so lucky. I can't tell you how blessed I feel and how privileged I feel to serve this same community, which is where I grew up. So going back to role models and where I grew up. So the lessons and the role models that I had, the fortune, and I want to say fortune and blessing, because I had parents that even though they came here with one suitcase, they had nothing, literally nothing, literally one suitcase. They had a big heart, and they had a lot of optimism. And I learned 3 lessons from them that I take with me everywhere I go, and this is what I share to the students. And the lesson number 1, and nobody would hopefully disagree with this, is that there is no substitute for hard work. Plain and simple. Getting down to the nitty-gritty. Now let me tell you what I saw in my role model, and I'll use my dad as this example. My father didn't know any English. He was an accountant in Cuba, but he couldn't do that here. He couldn't communicate. He couldn't get the degree. So he wore a sign that said, "I will cut your grass for $5. And he went around the neighborhood, and he did that. He then got into a car accident and was partially paralyzed for a long time. And what my dad taught me, though, he could have complained. I mean, he was in pain, but he wasn't always telling us that, that everything was down or life was down. He showed us, and he showed me, that it wasn't about where you came from, and it wasn't about how much money you had. It was about what kind of person you wanted to be when you grew up. And I remember him telling me, forget about the money. What kind of person do you want to be when you grow up? My mom then trying, and she had a lot of odd jobs to try to make sure that we had dinner at the table. She then gets fired by her boss because she was taking too much time taking care of my dad when he was in the accident. But yet, even with all of that, they told us in my little, 2-bedroom apartment in Hialeah, they said, things are going to get better, Willie, and my brother Eddie. Things are going to get better. We're going to be fine as long as we're together, and we're going to be okay. Do you know how, as a kid, you know how powerful it is to see that, to witness that, and to see, parents, struggle like that, but still try to give me and my brother optimism that we're going to do it. That, to me, is a definition of a role model, because it's not so much even the words, it's the example. It's the way that they live their lives with all of that. And they knew that they were going to succeed, and we were going to be determined to get better against all odds. And that lesson, to me, is something that I will never forget, because they always said to us, even though we don't have much, education is the equalizer. I don't know if you've heard that from parents. That I remember, that nobody can take from you. So even though I was in a 2-bedroom apartment with my grandmother, con la novela, full blast. I never forget my mom as I was a kid, and when it was time to study, she would say, "Sio!" And she told everybody in the house, "Be quiet. These boys have to study." And we had, people coming all over, from Cuba and staying with us, but that was the focus. That was the focus. And that is something, that lesson I have taken with me in my job as U.S. Attorney, and on so much of the violence that we're seeing, I have now asked our prosecutors and our professional staff members to go to different schools in this community that are with violence, that have a lot of violence around. A lot of their parents are in jail because they committed crimes, and they don't have those role models. So we're going in a different way in basically showing them that they can have a future, and starting with reading, because there's a link between the lack of the ability to read, and if you don't learn how to read by the 3rd grade at your level, 50% end up in the criminal justice system, end up in our world, and I don't want to see that. So think about that statistic. So now we go into the schools as different types of folks and trying to help them get a love of reading, and we read to them when they're little, and we ask them in class, how many of you have a book at home? 0. How many of you get read to? 0. So when we finish our reading program, we then, at the end of the day, at the end of the reading session, we actually give them a book so they can start their own little library. And now we're at 23 schools. We are reading now to 1,200 kids a month, and we have donated 2,000 books so far. And that, what we're doing, is because of the lessons that I learned from my parents and the lessons I learned from my mom and my dad. Lesson number 2 is a lesson I learned from my other role models. So I had my dad with the hard work, and then with the second one came from my mom. one of the things that changed my life, and one of the things that, and when I say that role models changed my life, is that when I was in school, I had never really met an attorney who was Hispanic. So I was, going to school, and I finally met someone who said to me, Willie, keep studying, and you like to debate a lot, so you're going to be a lawyer. That's what my parents said that too. So they said, and I said, oh, how do you become a lawyer? I didn't know. My parents didn't know, I didn't know, and he led me along the way. Somebody who really didn't even know me, but just took a chance on me. And then, as I became a lawyer, someone randomly came up to me and said, why don't you apply for a White House fellowship? And that's what changed my life. A White House fellowship is a one-year program when you go to DC and you become an assistant to a cabinet secretary member. And I remember thinking and saying, a White House fellow? So anyway, she gave me the application. I took the application. I went home. I looked at it. I looked at the bios of the people that were White House fellows the year before me. I said, más nunca, never. And I threw it in the trash. My mom, being a very strong-willed Cuban woman, walks by, and she sees this application, and it landed in the trash face up. She goes, mijito, hey, kid, what is this White House thing I see in the trash? I said, mommy, it's a White House fellowship up in D.C., but of course, I'll never get that. Why would a kid like me get that? I don't know anybody. I don't have any money. We have no connections. Forget that. Oh, my God. She looked at me, and she goes, what did you just say to me? She goes, come here. And I'll never forget that day. And I went up to her, and she said, so your dad and I left Cuba so that you and your brother can have every single opportunity that is afforded to you. And you dare tell me this and say no to yourself? She goes, I never want to ever hear you say no to yourself. She said, let them say no. And if they say no, so be it. You open another door. But if you say no to yourself, you're done. It was never even a possibility. She goes, I never want to hear that from you. Take that application and fill it out. And I went, wow, what a speech. Tremendo speech. I said, okay. I picked it up from the trash, I filled it out, and I got it. I learned two things. Moms are always right. So I always like, moms are always right. And the second lesson is, you cannot win if you don't play. And I tell the kids all the time, if you don't even try, and this is coming from someone who had incredible role models, but I somehow had a doubt. I had self-doubt because I'm thinking to myself, how can a Hialeah boy go and become an assistant to a cabinet secretary member? And that, when you think about it that way, from the sheer hard work, now no one can say that a Hialeah kid can't go and be in the White House and work in D.C. So that was the second lesson that I learned from my parents. And the third and final lesson that I learned from my role model was that when I got this White House fellowship and I went to D.C., I then got a chance to meet, by chance, another one that Ms. Regalado actually mentioned before in her speech, which was Janet Reno, who gave me a chance to work as a deputy chief of staff and a counselor to the Attorney General at the Department of Justice. And I remember that when I started that job, my dad, my parents were here, and my dad got stricken with cancer, and he got sick. And I remember that they allowed me at the Department of Justice, which I will never, ever, ever forget, and I will always be grateful, that they allowed me to come here and be with him before he actually passed away. And his last words to me were very, very small words, but very powerful words in Spanish. And he said, haz el bien, do good. That was his final message to me. And not a day goes by that I don't forget those words, and a day doesn't go by that I don't think about those words, which is why I chose to be in a life of public service. And I've been in public service for over 20 years. And it's a culmination of all these role models that came up to my life, and when somebody from public service came to my high school and spoke to me, those are the lessons. And my dad and my mom told me that we came to this country, and they came to this country, not to sit on the sidelines, but to get involved, which is so wonderful and awesome to see you here, because that's what you're doing. You're here because you want to make a difference. You're not sitting in the sideline letting things just happen, but you want to make a difference in kids' lives. And my parents also taught me that immigrants add value to this country. We actually add value. Despite whatever you may hear, we add value, and we do good, and we do good. And I feel like I get to choose a life where I get to do good and use the lessons that I learned from my role models. And my dream always is to send this message, as you all will send those kinds of messages to the children that you will be a role model to, that it is unbelievable what you can achieve when you dare to dream. When my mom dared me to dream and to stick my neck out there, as vulnerable as I might have felt, or even though I had self-doubt, but I dared to dream. And that is why I now can tell you that I have the best job in the world, and a job that I cherish every single minute. So that's my message. I cannot thank you enough. I am so excited that we get to do this now in Miami, that we get to bring the HISPA, message and power and the value of being this kind of role model and being this change agent for children. It's so incredible to see this now in my hometown. And I'm signed up. So I can't wait to get started here in Miami and to be a role model. And again, I cannot tell you how much I thank you, and I'm awed by seeing so many people here on a Friday night, and Renee and everybody involved. Thank you for having us, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Wilfredo. Thank you for sharing. At the beginning, when somebody talks, it might be tough to put yourself out there, and then you hear the stories, and they're so powerful. Truly appreciate it. And above everything, I think it has a power to inspire other people that maybe someone that has that story inside of them doesn't realize how much impact they can cause. Obviously, the HISPA Role Model Program, as you know, is already in San Antonio, Texas. It's already, with the help of ESPN, also in New York. And now we're glad to have it here in Miami. And our next speaker, maybe you're wondering, okay, why should I join HISPA on top of every reason that they've given you already? What benefits does it have for you guys to join this program? And our next speaker is going to speak about that. And he's also going to teach me in the future how to be a better role model for the kids. Rod Colon, run.
Well, thank you, Senor Sebastian. I was just talking to Mama, my mommy, all of 85 wonderful years. He say, ¿Y cómo tú estás ahí con el medio de Miami, el attorney judge? I said, Ma, what's the word you have for me? I know, el blablazo. And so I'm always talking. And it is, for this Bronx boy, of parents of factory workers, for me, it's such an honor to just be with Wilfredo, and for the mayor and Ana Cristina. I think the mic is on now, but I'll use my voice. And so here is this kid from the whose parents graduated all of 2nd and 3rd grade, who had 3 sons, and I'm the baby of the 3 of boys. And boy, did we give Mama a hard time. To be here in Miami and to share my passion and dream with each of you. Models. To be able to plant the seed in you so that you can share your fabulous story with our great children. Because as a role model, I get to speak to each of you. So if you sign up, we're going to have a nice conversation, because many of you will have great conversations and stories about accounting and healthcare and politics and law and all these things. But I said, no, the kids, not that. It's about your story. It's about your story. Not about what you do, more or less, but about your story and your upbringing. Because that's where the 5th and 6th and 7th graders can relate. Because when they say Wilfredo Ferrer and his suit and speaking in such distinguishes that, like, oh, I could never be him. No. But it's in the story of how you started and grew up, and the pains and the difficulties and the illnesses and all the struggles that you have that we need to share, but yet Latinos, typically we don't like to share that. Somos cristianos, con Dios manda y ahí está, you know, whatever my journey is. But our kids don't need to hear that message. Of course, they need to hear it on the weekends as well, but they need to hear the story of the sacrifices that we all make to succeed. Wilfredo mentioned about dreams. And one of the things that I share with the role models is, yes, we need to make sure that they have dreams. We have dreams, but let's make sure that there's a goal as well. And the difference between the dream and the goal is a plan. And that plan starts with family, starts with the community, but most important with education at school. So now, as role models and as speakers, there's no better feeling that you will get as a role model than engaging the audience of students that are on every word. There is a priceless piece to that, as I'm sure Mayor and Ana Cristina and Wilfredo and anyone who speaks in public, that when you can engage an audience, oh, that's such a warm feeling. And I trust you that each of you as role models, and I so look forward to it, is to share those stories that you'll feel that way. So, as a kid from the Bronx, I'm delighted and excited to be able to be with you here this evening and share this thing. So let me take you a little bit through the role model and let's continue with the program, but really, most importantly, is can't wait to go upstairs and see all those cards being filled out about our future, new and future role models that I'll be happy and delighted to coach. So, here, what I'd like you to do is, we are empowering, right? So we empower by our stories. And that's kind of a new tagline that we have this year. It is the power of our stories that empowers individuals, empowers our community. But you know what empowers you too? We were speaking with an individual before that said, the CIO at UPS, Juan Perez, and he said, with great delight, he said, you know, by doing the presentation that I prepared for the kids, I realized that I've accomplished quite a bit. And he was proud of what he's accomplished. Okay? So yes, our stories are going to impact the community. Our story will impact our organization. And certainly our stories will impact our careers. Why? Because many individuals that I coach are not professional speakers. And I asked them to develop this presentation, and quietly, as a career coach and executive coach, what am I actually doing? Is helping them with their own brand, helping them with their value proposition, helping them to see themselves in a different way, in a unique way, so they could get the information out. Too many individuals who I coach, when they come to me, and sometimes in transition and desperation, what they lack is the ability to tell their story and be proud of it. Many times, their label or tag is associated with their corporation, not the uniqueness in themselves. And so I get the opportunity to not only coach for a role model, but also do some coaching as well for themselves. Okay? So how can you help? Become a role model. Absolutely. Get ready to share, to inspire, and to empower these young future professionals. So let me just quickly, it's about your story. So what are you going to say? And certainly you can read that, but when I work with the individual, we're going to cover 6 topics, 6 themes about your presentation. Because many will say to me, Rod, I have 50 minutes in the class period. I don't know if I have 50 minutes of information to share about my story with them. I think about in 8 to 10 minutes, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm like, no, not at all. Let me help you with that. So the 6 things that we talk about is about your culture. Where did you grow up? How? Tell me about mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and all the things, all the things that it took to get you here. Just all the things. But give it to me in a story, not, I left in September of the, no, the story. How was it? Then we'll go into education. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes, I tell them, I took algebra in 9th grade. I knew STEM was not for me. So I'm honest with them, and I moved into an area that was important. We don't have to sugarcoat all the niceties, and I walked, everything was beautiful and not. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear the truth. Okay? So we talk about education. We talk about role models. Who are your role models? One of my role models early on in my career is sitting in the back, Irene Perez. And here I was at JP Morgan with a 1-day assignment being managed by Irene. And at the end of the day, I said, Irene, I really like this opportunity here at JP Morgan. I'd like to stay more. And that 1-day assignment turned to 2 weeks, 2 months, 16 years. A lot of things that you were sharing about hard work, but also being effective, right? So then we talk about, from a perspective of why volunteer? Why is it important to volunteer with HISPA and with other areas? And for the youth, to remind them that even at 5th, 6th, 7th grade, they can volunteer too. At school, at home, at a place of worship. And why is that valuable? Because of the experience that they gain, the people that they meet, the interactions. Okay? And we talk about goals, like I mentioned before, okay? From that perspective. So we work on all these different things from a preparation standpoint. Okay? And we plan. And so one of the things, and this is our last slide, is not only is it your presentation sharing, but it's also a PowerPoint presentation, which is of pictures. So now, in visualizing Mayor Regalado, Alfredo, Ana Cristina, the rest of you, there's some beautiful pictures you have. Now, for some, you're like, I don't have these pictures. I mean, they're not digitized. I mean, they're somewhere in the attic or I don't know. Well, you just take a picture and we'll get it digitized. But the beauty of a powerful story, and just visualize this, and that behind me is a slideshow of Rodriguito in his communion, Rodriguito at confirmation, Rodriguito at his wedding, Rodriguito with his kids. And just see that as I'm sharing my story is powerful, is impactful. When I say, yeah, my mom and dad are from Puerto Rico, hey, Puerto Rico, and that's what happens in the schools, and it's okay. We just lighten it up a little bit. So I'll pause here. There's so many other things. I'm so delighted to be here. I'm looking forward to coaching, guiding, influencing, inspiring you in any way I can as your role model coach. Thank you so much.
HISPA's goal is to reach 20,000 stories by 2020, and we want your story to count. If you might have any questions, and it's going to be really easy to join here. We're going to have pledge cards upstairs when we share some drinks, some beverages later on. But if you have any questions about HISPA in general, about how to join, about what's going to happen next, I'm going to introduce our next speaker now, the operations director here in Miami. He moved from New York to Miami just in time for HISPA's launching here in the South Florida. Let's give a big hard welcome to John Moreno.
No entiendo por qué nadie habló en español hasta ahora. No he podido, estamos en Miami, ¿no? Muy buenas tardes. No me voy a demorar mucho porque tenemos un evento arriba, muy importante también, que es el de conocernos como comunidad de HISPA de ahora en adelante y de compartir algunos de nosotros nuestras propias experiencias como role model speakers. And not just sharing our stories between each other, but also making sure that all of you after tonight also share the story of Wilfredito and the rest of the people here with your colleagues at your companies. This is just a seed that we're planting today. So one of the biggest things that we want to make sure is that you register online to become a mentor. A role model, I'm sorry. And I'm gonna show you a picture of the website that will kind of give you an idea of how is our system working currently. We also want to make sure that as an employee of the role model program that you really start to looking into how you could engage with HISPA at different levels. And I will talk to you about that in a minute. So if you're interested today, there is two things that I want to make sure that you guys do today. One is that when we go upstairs, there will be some pledge cards that you will have to fill with your name, with your information, with the mileage that you are looking into travel to get to schools. And this pledge card will go to Rod, and he will contact you. And automatically, that will give you kind of like a pass to start becoming a role model in one of our schools. You will get an account, you will log into that account, and you will go to our website. And when you go to our website, in the next couple of weeks, you're gonna start seeing dates starting December 1st, in which you could pick to which school you could go, and at what time you could go, and if that's convenient to you, if it's close to you, if it's a middle school or a high school. For first time, we have a high school here in Miami. We're doing 9th graders in Miami High School, as the mayor mentioned at the beginning. So we are going to give you all this information. I will be following up. Unfortunately, I will be that annoying person, como nuestro abuelito que nos molesta siempre. Mijito, no haga tal cosa. I will be that. I will be that person. I will be making sure that you have all the information you need. I will also make sure that you submit your biography, that you have your PowerPoint ready, that if by any, we don't know, God forbid, something happening in your family, that you are letting us know with enough time to ask another role model to come and fill in for you if you have something going on at home. And I will make sure that with Rod that you are successful at sharing your story and that you are at the school and at the place that you need to be the day of the engagement. So I will make sure that if you need to be aware of the parking in the area, if you need to know what are the population of the students, if you want to know any details, I will make sure that you get that information. The second part, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, is this call to action. We want to make sure that everyone here share this opportunity with every other colleague at your office, with your family, that you make sure that if you know another powerful story, that you bring it to our program so we could share it with our students. We also, of course, require a lot of in-kind donation, which is really important for us. So if you said, I don't have the time right now, but I think my office, my division could work with John and HISPA and Renee and Ruben to really help you with printing materials like we did today with ESPN, and that's why you guys have your badges. Helping with printing the programs or the bios for the students if we don't have enough budget at the schools. We always welcome in-kind donations. They are really important for us. And one of the most important ones is making sure that if you know any funding opportunity, that you let us know. That if you know there is a grant for role models, for mentors, please let us know. We could be in 100 schools right now. Miami, I think, and I was sharing this with the rest of the team upstairs, is kind of like the easy brainer, right? Everyone is like, oh, Latinos program mentoring Miami. But it requires funding. And right now we are in 2 schools thanks to the support of our major sponsors, starting with Visa. And we want to keep building more and more of this program in every school in Miami. And making sure that our middle school kids are getting the message of every one of you. So one of our commitments is to have 200 role models, and that will be possible by engaging more of your peers or your companies. Of course, we have our 4 biggest partners in Miami that have pledged certain number of role models at this point, and we look forward to engage more corporations and more people to the program. Again, it's just not about corporations only, but if you know a really remarkable story in your family from a person who is mid-management, director, VP, or an executive, please tell him to look into us and email me or look into the HISPA.org website to find information about it. And lastly, of course, I want to bring up really quick to the podium the CEO of Visa Latin America, Eduardo Coelho. So Eduardo, you can come to the front. Also, the Senior Director of Sports Content from ESPN, Oscar Ramos. And I think one of the champions of our program now, let me rephrase this, and Mauricio is going to kill me because I'm taking 2 more minutes of the agenda, but I've been involved with high schools and middle schools for 7 years in New York. And for me, that a principal from a school who needs the help of a leader every day, all day, it's here sharing this with us, for me is huge, because I was in schools all the time, and I know how busy they are, how many responsibilities they get. So I want you to welcome, with a round of applause, to the principal of the Kinloch Park Middle School, Principal Weiner, who's sharing the presentation with us today. Welcome, Principal. Come upstairs. Come right here. And now I want to give maybe 1 minute before Mauricio kicks me out. Mauricio es como mi abuelita, está siempre así. Mauricio me va a matar si me demoro más, pero quisiéramos que Eduardo y Oscar y Mr. Scott share just 1 minute of why you guys are joining the program and why you think this is important for your school and for your corporations. Thank you.
Well, good evening to everybody. And the reason why we are doing is very simple. Number one, because education is the core of our social responsibility programs in Visa. We do a lot of work on financial inclusion and financial education. We do a lot of things in Latin America. But when we look at the Miami office, our headquarters for the region, we didn't really have a single program. We had a lot of scattered efforts because our people are very, very active with the community. But then when Ana Cristina and Yvonne came into our office and explained HISPA, I mean, that really made sense for us to really got into here. Why? Because our people really want to help here. As a definition, our office here in Miami is an office where we receive a lot of people who were born in different countries in Latin America and come here because we serve our Latin American clients from here. And we also have a lot of Hispanics in our office. So maybe 85–90% of our people in our office here, we are Latinos. So we always also want to go to give back to our community and also give back to our countries. So I'm very pleased to tell you that not only we are supporting with, funds are important, but we have made a commitment with HISPA of having 50 role models from Visa for Miami, which is... So we have already started to talk about this in the office. Everybody is so excited. So Rod, you will have a lot of work with us.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I wanted to, first of all, thank Mr. Mayor and Cristina for bringing this great program to our wonderful city. Giving back to the community is really at the heart of what our company does. We're very proud and happy to have been part of HISPA and its launch in New York and continue to be very active with them in New York. And what better way to extend it to what we're doing here in South Florida and our ability to help and reach out to the community. I know we talked a lot about today with Rod and with Willie about dreaming, and one of the things that the great founder of our parent company, Walt Disney, liked to always say was, if you can dream it, you can do it. And we'd like to take that message and help with HISPA to take that message to all our kids here in Miami. So thank you.
So a wise man once said, never be the guy in between the people in front of you and the food. So I'll be brief. The importance of the program and the mentor program for the students at Kinloch Park, and I also learned never say my, it's always our, is that the stories that they will hear is going to be very impactful because it's where they're coming from. And it's not just some guy from another area that just needs to do community service. It's people that actually care, and they're coming in with the same way that they came up. So they're seeing themselves at an older part of their lives where they can be. So they can completely relate, and that's the difference between somebody who's mentoring somebody or somebody who's being their role model. And so that's why this is extremely important to the school and the students, because they will see that they do have a future, and they're not going to see, I'm going to be scrounging and scraping for each dollar each day as I get older, and I'm going to be doing the same thing over and over, that there is a future for them. So thank you for bringing it to our school.
And Rod, I'm going to ask you for something really big. I know that you love your pen, but I wanted to give a pin to the CEO of Visa Latin America, which is the only one who's missing a pin from our key stakeholders here. I give mine to the principal. I don't have my pen. I have to ask for another pen. No, a pen from HISPA, not a pen. And also, I want to make sure that we, of course, we recognize all the stakeholders, and I apologize for, Renee did a great job listing everyone, but also, Anna was just sending me a quick note to make sure that we recognize First Bank of Florida, Jose Maria La Casa, which is here also with us. You could stand up so we can recognize you. And I think I didn't know this. I just know that just got to know that the city manager of Miami, Danny Alfonso, which is in the back, has donated this space for the whole year, right? Is that correct? Yeah, that's fine. For the whole year, with no attachment to any fee or nothing. So we're really, really appreciative of this. And again, I think not just for everyone who's here, and which I will be closely working with, but I think that Anna, you have been an amazing champion. I want to make sure that we give you a round of applause.
Also wanted to thank a couple of HISPA important players that are here today. Mauricio Lemonc, who made this event possible. He came all the way from Colombia, so thank you so very much. Aisa Acevedo, also working hand in hand with Yvonne for the past 5 years, so we truly appreciate it. As I said, I'm going to go upstairs now. We're going to eat. We're going to have a drink. I'm going to fill out my pledge card. I hope many of you do as well. And those who do it today will actually get a chance to win a Southwest round trip for two anywhere in the United States and Puerto Rico. Southwest, one of our airline partners here at HISPA. So you might get lucky at the same time of helping people. So please enjoy the food, enjoy the drinks, and most of all, please fill up your pledge cards. You'll be changing lives. Thank you so much.
Renee, the mayor, the attorney general, and the people from UPS, if you guys could come to the front for a picture, and then the rest of you, we could ask you to go upstairs to enjoy our appetizers and drinks. And also Microsoft, I have UPS, Microsoft, ESPN. If you guys could come upstairs, up in the front. I keep saying upstairs, I don't know why. Thank you.